I first learned about Devil's Swamp when I was about 5 years old. My father took us to Southern University. Southern University is on a high bluff overlooking the Mississippi River. And just to the north of Southern University is this expanse called Devil's Swamp. It's an overflow swamp of the Mississippi River. When I was a senior in college, I had a project that took me down into Devil's Swamp, and I just loved it. I would go down there all by myself too, and spend hours in the swamp. In 1971, when I found out I had an opportunity to purchase a house on the edge of Devil's Swamp, I was absolutely elated. And I moved there. I used to spend a lot of time with my son. We would go out in Devil's Swamps just on walks, just looking sometimes. In the spring of the year, we'd go pick blackberries in the swamp. The first year that I lived there, I found bear tracks. A couple of years later, a cougar was spotted there in Devil's Swamp. We're talking about an area that's about 9 square miles. There were all kinds of turtles, of course, and there were alligators and lots of different kinds of fish, all kinds of wildlife that was there. And it was so beautiful. This was before all the pollution had moved in. Within a very short period of time, I began to notice changes in the swamp. You come across ponds that had once been teeming with, for example, baby salamanders. And you get there, and the water was covered with a greasy film, and there was nothing living in it. I began to realize something's wrong here. It's not safe. I don't think we should be coming out in Devil's Swamp anymore. And we stopped coming out. Over the years, things began to change. I began to notice some things just weren't right. People in the community always complained of bad smells, and I'd get the bad smells and shrug them off. But things got more and more severe, and I remember my next door neighbor, Mr. Pate, saying, "Those aren't smells, those aren't odors, those are fumes." And he was absolutely right. Those were chemical fumes, and every time we smelled them, they were doing damage to our bodies. Some days when I'd walk out of my house in the morning and the yard would be littered with dead birds. They'd just fall out the sky. For no reason at all, dead birds would just fall out the sky. My neighbor across the street had fine cattle. He wakes up one day and the whole herd is dead. No explanation. These kinds of strange things happened. They happened to animals, and whatever happened to them was happening to us as well. I noticed that the people on my street who were the first ones to get cancer and die were people who did a lot of subsistence gardening and subsistence fishing. Rollins, which was a hazardous waste facility, had leaking landfills, and the toxins from their landfills had leaked off their property, and they were getting in the groundwater and they were spreading. I was absolutely appalled, and it was at that point that I decided it was time for me to educate myself and get involved. I'm Florence Robinson, formerly a teacher at Southern University in the Department of Biology and a former resident of Alson. If we're going to have any kind of really lasting effects, it's going to take more than just a few affected communities, because it's too easy for people to see a community on television and say, "Oh, those poor people," and then that's the last they think about it. All of America and all of the world has got to realize that we are one world. It is finite. And what happens to me will eventually happen to you. And therefore, you all need to be aware. You need to educate yourselves. Our people who are in the situation need to educate others so that they understand. And then everybody get involved, and let's petition, do more than petition the government. Basically tell the government, look, this is the way it's got to be. We're tired of your bull. We want it straight. We want it done now. Or if you don't, we're going to continue to spiral downhill.